Welcome back to part 2 of the 2018 Smark Out Moment Awards. We are recapping the entire 2018 in WWE and eventually later on Smark Out Moment as well. And we talked about the technical skills in part 1, so go back and check that out if you have not checked that out. It also is a breakdown of how this whole best and worst thing works. So do that, follow things in order, and you will be fine. That's also going to be our introduction for who of us. We're not going to introduce ourselves every single section. So let's just jump right into this here. The Writing Awards. These are the categories that are more on the scripted side of things that aren't just, individual performance type things. We're going to start things off with the catchphrase or slogan. This could be any kind of catchphrase or slogan for that matter. It could be something that WWE does, like how they originally, when they started promoting the WWE network, they started doing the whole $9.99 type thing. It could be individual people saying, one of my honorable mentions for best is the whole stakes and weights thing from Heavy Machinery, because I think that that's funny as hell. Anything that you got when it comes to that. I will say that the two that I kind of couldn't quite decide yet on were Get These Hands and Walk with Elias. And I'm going to see if you guys can lean me one way or another before I pick on that. But those are the two that I'm working with for best. For my worst, and I'll talk honorable mentions a little bit later. My worst that I went with, it was really tough. And I'm sure that you guys are going to go with one of my honorable mentions, which was, I'll bring it up when you guys bring it up, because I'm sure you will. But my worst I actually ended up picking was Absolutely Glorious. Because it used to be a good catchphrase. And they ran that down into the ground so poorly that now it's just groan-inducing. That's all Bobby Roode ever does now, is he just says, yeah, by the way, and something, something, absolutely glorious. And now they brought Chad Gable into the mix, and he fucking says it. So they're kind of showing their cards that that's the only thing that they have going on that they like about that team. Not a fan of that at all. I want that to go back to its previous roots. We got a lot of different options that I have on my list for best and worst, so who wants to pick things up, and I'll kind of chime in here and there if you bring it up an honorable mention.
Okay, so I'll go for my best one. I wanted to go with Get These Hands was a very close one for me. That's probably like second place. But I decided to go with, and it's not one that he often says on TV, but he definitely says it through like social media and stuff like that. The greatest sports entertainer in history. For Tommaso Ciampa. I thought it's such a dick thing to say as a pro wrestler, because everyone knows people hate it when you say, oh, you're a sports entertainer, not a wrestler. We work in sports entertainment, damn it, not wrestling. And so he uses that so perfectly. I think that's such a good heel move. For the worst, let me just set the tone a minute here.
Yeah, this is one of my honorable mentions.
Oh my god, it's boss time! Yes, it's so awful. And I don't care if it's not really, like, it's I don't class it as a Sasha Banks catchphrase, I class it as a Michael Cole catchphrase, and it's the worst thing. It absolutely ruins her entrance. But if we're going like for honorable mentions as well, there was two other ones that I had in my mind. I had Shanti.
That's another one.
The Jinder Mahal chant, and welcome to Monday Night Raw. Hang on. I think I missed one from earlier this year as well. I might, Rob, you go with your one first, because I've got to prepare myself for this one.
So for my best, surprising none of you, I'm sure, is Adam Cole, baby. That it's never not fun. It's always just the best thing. The crowd loves it. They completely get behind it. Also, best catchphrase, specifically from the crowd, because it's the only thing they do that I like, the burn it down stuff. I really enjoy that. It's added something new to Seth's character. the worst catchphrase. Now, part of me really wants to say, get these hands, because I'm over it. And I think that they rely a little too much on that one line for Braun Strowman. But I really do think that I'm going to piggyback on something Tony said earlier in the last part and say the reigning, defending, undisputed Universal Champion, just the whole Heyman's whole intro for Lesnar is just blah. And I think I've gotten to the point where it's like, I no longer need it every single time out. And also, nobody's ready for Asuka because it gave birth to the Charlotte was ready for Asuka.
And then like, yay, I'm so happy for you that you beat me.
So like that gets under my skin. And also the Bella-lution. As I say that out loud, that might be the worst. The Bella-lution, it's just terrible.
Actually, could we classify Slogan as women's evolution?
We could.
Like,
They
just
said it enough times.
that they do the whole, like, oh, it's so, like, you know, all the typical, like, well, the first ever blah, 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 and you're going to make history here with whatever, like, the fact that they have, like, this company speak when it comes to that, instead of just saying whatever the hell they want to say. It's kind of like when people go with strong female character, and it's like, oh my god, how many times are you going to use that fucking phrase instead of just saying, like, Ellen Ripley kicks ass in Alien? Like, you know, it's not like, well, she's a strong female character. Like, yeah, maybe we could go with that, too.
I mean, it's not a catchphrase, it's a way of life, Tony. But I think just before we move on past the catchphrase, I don't think we can really adequately move past without potentially the worst phrase that was uttered in WWE this year. Page here.
Oh, that was this year, yeah. Page here. Oh, God, my heart. She tweeted something recently, and she said something like, I'm never going to live that down. That's going to haunt me forever, or whatever it was.
I like the fact that she's taking it in stride.
Well, she has to, because it's just god-awful.
It's not her fault. They should have reshot that thing without the long page here pause. Like...
Oh, no, that's her fault, too, because it's the plastic surgery's been part of that. You know, the whole puffed out with the lips and everything. That made it even worse. Some of the other options I had under worst, I had anything that Enzo Amore says, anything that comes out of his mouth. Anything that the Riot Squad tries to get off. It's just, none of them are catchphrases that actually continue. I also don't like when Becky was doing the straight fire thing. The nickname I liked, but when she was doing like the bow and arrow and going straight fire, it's just like, oh, shut up. This is something out of like that Super Nintendo Captain America and the Avengers game. The whole like the Avengers and shit. The best options that I had down, I mentioned stakes and weights, I think is funny. Fucking Otis. Just hey, Tucky, like that kind of thing. It's just like, dude, this is not like a catchphrase thing, but I fucking giggle every time he does it. It's just ridiculous. I really like the nickname, the EST of NXT.
Yes. That's
really good. Rusev Day was over as fuck this year in a lot of different ways. And if they wouldn't have fucked it up, the whole Shinsuke Nakamura no speak English thing, the first time he did that, I was like, if this is a thing now, I'm going to like this. And then they just kind of decided to not use them and make nothing out of it and all that. So that ruined that. And I guess since I have to pick now between Get These Hands and Walk with Elias, I'm going to give a slight advantage to Walk with Elias because he got that over as fuck this year. But man, Get These Hands is just, I loved this year and last year, the whole Braun Strowman doing the like, you know, hey, fuck you, pal, and you're going to fucking get these hands. It's just sort of like, it's as simple as it can be. It's just like, I'm a big lumbering oaf and I'm going to fuck you up. And you're like, all right, yeah, fine. You know, get these hands. Sure. Let's move over to Gimmick. These are the characters themselves. It's the mic work kind of mixed in with how they write the character, what they do as far as telling stories and different things like that. My best, I went with Crazy R-Truth wants to fight Carmella. That whole kind of thing. I love the idea that he is just like, getting her mixed up with Maurice and wanting to, oh, well, I'm going to get that title match. I'm going to fight Carmella. It's like that I really, really loved a lot. I like babyface Braun Strowman a lot. He was my number 2. My worst, stop me if my honorable mentions are your picks. The Riot Squad are just incredibly ineffective heels at anything that they tried to do. Like, I don't buy Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan being these, like, Riot people. But my number 2 pick that I had this down as my worst, but they stopped it, thankfully, before it got even more recurring, which was Drake Maverick peeing himself. If that would have been another thing that they would have done one more time, I would have made that the worst. However, I thought back on how much that had happened versus how long statistician Dana Brooke was. And why the fuck was Dana Brooke the statistician of Titus Worldwide? Why was that a thing? That is the stupidest way to try to utilize Dana Brooke. That's my worst. Fuck that idea. Fuck the writer who thought of it. Whatever. What you guys got?
For me, my worst, and here I am picking on him, Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose's heel turn and everything he's done has just been not even like, oh, what's he gonna do next? Just like, why is this happening at all? The term inoculated and getting the shot in the ass and the weird gas mask and all that kind of stuff. Really, I don't get it with him. Honorable mention goes to heel Braun Strowman, only because that Monday, Tony, I had said to you, dude, I get it. I love face Strowman. They're so into him. It's going to be great when he cashes in. And then they turn him heel. And I was just like, all right, he's dead to me now. And other honorable mention for worst gimmick, the Shanti thing is stupid for Jinder. Poor guy was champion last year. It's not fair to him. Best gimmick, and I don't think I'm going to get any argument here, Velveteen Dream.
Velveteen Dream's a potential option for sure. He's great. I still don't know what the fuck his gimmick is, though. That's the problem.
That's the point. I couldn't. If someone to ask me what is Velveteen Dream's gimmick, I'd say Velveteen Dream.
Yeah, but that's perfect.
New Goldust-esque.
Yeah, it's like Prince essentially.
Yeah,
but I'd say he's definitely high up there. In terms of my best, if Rusev Day had really got off the ground, I would have put them. And I would have done it as a unit as well, because I think him and Aiden English was a great combination. But they kind of shit the bed on it. So I wanted to give it, and also another honorable mention was Undisputed Era, for being essentially four horsemen, should I say, light?
Yeah.
Like, essentially like the diet version of Four Horsemen.
But how great are they?
Oh, they're amazing. But I decided to give it to a recent one, which is evil, vegan, environmentalist Daniel Bryan. He is
fickle.
It's so good. He's such a great heel. Like, and it's amazing because he's such an amazing babyface, and he was an amazing babyface for so many years. Now he's just turned heel, and he's already like the best heel, one of the best heels in the entire company.
Did you see the promo before TLC?
Yeah. It's so perfect. It's like he's delivered some of the best promos this entire year just at the end of it, and his characters suit so well. Like, I usually don't like the "you people" promos, but he pulls it off because his previous gimmick was all about the people, and so it fits that he, in turning heel, he also has to turn against the people and realise that the people weren't helping him. So it makes sense to me, and the way that he delivers the promo just makes it work. Worst of the year, Jinder Mahal was high up there. Statistician Dana Brooke was high up there. Sanity, because I don't know what Sanity is anymore, was a potential one. Also, I was a huge like disliker of Constable Corbin.
I liked Constable Corbin.
To be fair, Constable Corbin was all right. General Manager Corbin was a step too far, I think, for me. But I decided to go for another one, which was like relatively recent, but short-lived. But I thought was bad enough in just any sense of logic. Lucha House Party rules. Because why would a babyface team have the advantage over heels in matches? Just makes absolute. You should never have a handicap match where the babyfaces outrank the heels. And the fact they did it constantly, and it just made jokes out of the revival, and it didn't do anything to help Lucha House Party. Just thought it was just really stupid.
No, but you don't get it. The whole joke was that screw the revival thinking tag team wrestling should be relevant. How dare you?
Oh yeah, I'm at fault for not getting it.
Yeah,
it's my problem.
It's absolutely your problem.
I also like, and I usually don't give too many negatives to NXT, but the finest Kona Reeves.
Oh,
Oh, screw him. He was Velveteen Dream light, and screw him.
Oh, they got over that train real fast. He had like 2 matches where he was starting to get a push, and then he started losing again. So
It's like, because he used to have, like, I didn't know too much about the gimmick, but he used to be called Noah Kakoa, and that's such an amazing name. Why can't you stick with that? Why do you have to go to the finest Kona Reeves? And NXT's not infallible. They do make mistakes.
yeah. Well, Kona Reeves makes mistakes. He should just be like
He makes
fucking
the finest mistakes.
Kona Reeves again. With like keep the Kona Reeves name and just put him back in the Hawaiian thing. Like just let him do that again. That's fine. Yeah. He's not going to like be main eventing WrestleMania, but it's like you're not going to main event WrestleMania as the finest. So let's go with heel or face turns here. This could be again kind of self-explanatory a little bit. Heel or face. So you could go with best heel turn, best face turn, best or worst heel turn, worst face turn. I kind of figure it's an easier way to do that than to say you have to pick a best heel turn, a best face turn. You don't need to double it up. So I went with, for the best turn of the year, Roderick Strong turning heel at TakeOver New Orleans. For the context of the situation, Strong and Pete Dunne and the Authors of Pain were supposed to be the finals of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, and the Undisputed Era got involved. And the Undisputed Era got forced to defend the tag team titles. Bobby Fish was not able to actually defend them, so Adam Cole steps in, and Adam Cole's doing double duty that night, and it's a whole big thing like that. So what's the game plan? Well, Roderick Strong, all this time after turning down Undisputed Era over and over again, fucks over Pete Dunne, joins them. They win the tag titles, they retain the tag titles. They win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, even though they weren't in the tournament. And he has helped fill the gap of Bobby Fish and get a boost to his career. They checked off so many different things from that turn, and I didn't see it coming because I thought that they were going to have a different reversal. If you go back to the predictions for that, I was going adamantly that Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly would win that match on their own, and then by wrestling that match, Adam Cole would lose the North American Championship. And once they had that North American title match first, I was just like, I don't know what the fuck they're going to do now. Roderick Strong, totally didn't see that one coming, and I loved that so much. I currently have a tie now for worst because they're exactly the same type of thing, so I don't really know how to differentiate between the two of them, which is trying to turn Braun Strowman and Becky Lynch heels. That is just the stupidest thing. The Braun Strowman thing, Rob just mentioned it, he's the most over babyface on that entire Monday Night Raw brand for damn near an entire year, even though half of the last year he wasn't a babyface. And they don't want to push him for some fucking reason. They're pushing this Roman Reigns thing. It's not working out. And they decide the best way to remedy this situation is to force Braun Strowman to be a heel so that maybe people can go, okay, we don't want you to cheer Braun Strowman. We want you to cheer Roman Reigns. You have to now because that one's a heel and whatever. Absolutely ridiculous. Becky Lynch, she gets cheered beating up Charlotte Flair, and they try to have her come out and say, like, fuck the fans. The fans wanted nothing of it, and thankfully, the people in the crowd for that night and the couple of weeks that followed it just said fuck you to WWE, and they would cheer when she was crapping on the fans, because otherwise we would have heel Becky Lynch right now instead of babyface Becky Lynch. So, quick shout out to the completely inconsequential Big Show and Dana Brooke turns, because it's a revolving door when it comes to them. But those are my best and worst heel or face turns. What you guys got?
For best turns, Roderick Strong is up there, and if you go back into those predictions, I did see that one coming, and they really did turn chicken shit into chicken salad with that one, because that could have been just another tag match. Undisputed Era wins, and they enhanced everything so much more. For me, though, I think the best turn, even though it wasn't a full heel turn, because thankfully the people did stop it, but I think Becky Lynch turning on Charlotte was one of the best things that happened. If you look at right now, Becky Lynch is the most over person in WWE, and if she didn't turn on Charlotte, there's no way that happens. So that's my best turn of the year. My worst turn, I already said it, trying to turn Braun Strowman heel, and it really killed him for me. So that's by far my worst.
I almost put like the same person for the best and worst, which was weird. Because the same person was Nia Jax, because I thought her face turn was excellently executed at the start of the year, because it really got people behind her going into the WrestleMania match with Alexa Bliss. And I also would have put her down as the worst for the heel turn that followed, where she was basically teaming with Ember Moon for a couple of weeks and then attacked her and just felt really weak. But the best ones, Roderick Strong's high up there, Becky Lynch, Daniel Bryan as well. But I'm going with one which is still kind of in the process of taking place, which is Johnny Gargano. I think the story they're telling with him is, well, this entire storyline that's been going on for nearly 2 years at this point with Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa is a work of wrestling art that we need to appreciate while it's still happening. And I'm so looking forward to Gargano and Ciampa teaming up as heels in NXT in the coming months. Before it reaches a conclusion. I know you've talked about the fact that you don't think that's happening. I'm 100% convinced that it is happening, and they won't fight for the championship until the WrestleMania takeover the year following this next year, 2020.
I mean, I just want to say, I don't think we're ever going to see another story that has been this.
Oh no,
Well
never.
done.
No, not in WWE. I don't think. I think this is becoming the zenith of, like, this is the thing that you'd show to anybody. Say this is as good as storytelling gets in professional wrestling.
Well, we're definitely going to touch back on this.
Yeah. For worst, obviously, I was thinking the Nia Jax one, the Braun Strowman one didn't make any sense. Dean Ambrose's one has been poor to a high level, but at least those kind of felt like definitive heel turns. Like there was actually an event that happened that caused them to turn heel. Why the fuck did Mickie James turn heel? Like she'd been feuding with Alexa Bliss, and then leading up to Elimination Chamber, Alexa Bliss somehow played a mind trick on her and caused her to be on her side, and then she just came out of her the next week and she was with her again. I hate heel turns like that, because it's just like a case of, okay, we just wanted this person to be heel and we went to absolutely no effort to actually make it definitive why she turned.
Mm-hmm. Somebody just said Alexa needs a friend. Well, she had a friend in Becky before, in Mickey before, right? Yeah. Okay, let's just do that again. That's all they did.
I think what they were doing was, it was the chamber, right? And everybody kind of had a buddy.
Yeah.
So she just saved Mickey one week, and they're like, "Yeah, we're friends again."
Yeah, but it didn't really have a real payoff. I mean, obviously they're back together now as like a team, but in the actual chamber match, Mickie James was eliminated before Alexa Bliss even got into the match, so it didn't even have any real payoff in that regard. So, and then also like a couple of other ones for honorable mentions for worst. Aiden English, because it has done absolutely nothing for his career, and it's like it hasn't done anything for Rusev really. I know he's going to be United States champion soon, but their act was so much better together than it is separate. And also the Mighty, because it did absolutely nothing for them. They were boring baby faces and they were boring heels.
By the
Or
way,
did
for
they kneel?
for context, everybody, the reason why you said soon is because we're recording this on the 21st, so
Oh yeah.
SmackDown hasn't aired yet, even though this is
Oh
going to
no,
be
I mean
posted
he
on
is,
like
he
the
is United States champion. You
Yeah.
know, saw that match last night. It was great. Yeah.
which I should have mentioned at the start of the two, because that might mean that there might be some terrible stuff that happens on Raw or SmackDown that were pre-taped, but I don't think necessarily. But that Natalya match against Ronda Rousey, maybe that's the worst match of the year or something. Who knows? Yeah, I agree.
Did the Mighty kneel? Did they
One of them
kneel?
did. I think
That's
Miller's
true.
going. Let's go to title reign of the year, best and the worst. Man, this was a rough one. I had so many down for worst. For best, I went with the NXT Tag Team Championship on the Undisputed Era. They had 2 title reigns technically, but really, the only separation was 2 days. Like, they recorded the winning the title back 2 days after they had lost it. So it's 1 title reign. I don't fucking care. They held it from last year going into this year, and they're going to hold it going into next year. They were the staples of that division, and there's so many options for worst this year that I was like, I don't know if I can pick anything else for best. My worst options, though, stop me if it's on your list. These are my honorable mentions. Randy Orton for the United States title.
On my list.
Jinder Mahal for the United States title.
Very high on my list.
Braun Strowman and Nicholas Raw Tag Team Championship.
Yes.
Oh, fuck them. Yeah.
Shinsuke Nakamura for the United States title.
I'm just gonna say it now. Like, most of my ones on my list were either United States champions or Raw Tag Team champions.
Well, I've got Authors of Pain for the Raw Tag Team Championship. The B Team for the Raw Tag Team Championship. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt for the Raw Tag Team Championship.
Boy, it has not been a good year for the Raw Tag Team Championship.
The U.S. title and the Raw Tag titles. No. Ember Moon for the NXT Women's Championship, because she just held it to drop it immediately to Shayna Baszler, and the only reason she didn't drop it immediately was because they didn't want her to drop it immediately, so they dragged it out an extra month. And my other runner-up is Mustache Mountain for the NXT Tag Team Championship, because they literally lost it 2 days later. But my pick is Brock Lesnar's Universal Championship. That fucking thing was the biggest, just steaming pile of shit. And he has the title again. So we're just in the middle of another steaming pile of shit.
I mean, I hate steaming piles of shit as much as the next guy, but at least Lesnar is an athlete who had...
Could have fooled me. He does 2 goddamn moves every single match. He wrestles 5 matches a year, I think. And 1 match of the year is the only one that he doesn't actually put, that he does actually put some effort into. And it's the 1 match that the title's not on the line. What the fuck?
But that's still not as bad as putting the Tag Team Championship on a 10-year-old for a fucking gag. It's not, that is not okay. There's so many other capable competitors. There's the Revival. There's, you could have done the Hardy and Wyatt thing, and that would have been better. But you literally had Braun Strowman team with the guy for the next 2 months. But you did this thing where you said he doesn't need a partner just so you could have this kid be tag team champions. And haha, isn't it great how much tag teams are irrelevant? That's why the Undisputed Era was your favorite title reign, because, hey, tag teams mean something. So yeah, for me, worst, it's going to be Strowman and Nicholas.
Nicholas. Oh my god, I can't believe that that's a thing that we do this year. Looking back, it's like...
And this is the year that included Seth Rollins and Jason Jordan as the tag team champions, by the way.
Also, yeah, and Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins as well for a hot minute before Dean Ambrose immediately turned on Seth Rollins. They were Raw Tag Team Champions as well.
Worst year for the Raw Tag titles.
What was your best?
Oh, my best.
Better not be Brock Lesnar.
It's not Brock Lesnar. I know he doesn't defend it much, but I'm gonna give it to Pete Dunne because he's been champion for like, what is it, close to 600
557 days, I think.
Yeah,
So
over 500, yeah.
how can you not say that, like, this guy has anchored that entire division? The only reason there's any interest in NXT UK brand is because of how well Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate shined. And yeah, he's been champion close to 600 days. You're never going to see that again in the history of WWE. So, you know, good on Pete Dunne. I also honorable mention Seth Rollins as IC champ, because I think that really elevated his game. And honorable mention, WWE champion AJ Styles, because if you would have told me 3-4 years ago that AJ Styles would not only be in WWE but be their champion for a year, I would have called you a liar. So that was pretty cool to see.
So he gets disqualified for me because he had basically 2 feuds the entire year and they just dragged them out.
It's not his fault.
Still, this is the writing category. They wrote it that way.
Eh.
So for best title reign, obviously AJ Styles was high on my list. I thought Andrade Cien Almas for the first part of the year as NXT champion was amazing. I thought it was such a real, like, talk about the belt elevating a guy. It was just such a high level. Adam Cole and Ricochet both as North American champions. Obviously, Undisputed Era as the tag team champions, as good as they're. Shayna Baszler pretty much has been NXT Women's Champion the entire year.
Yeah, she's done a good job.
But I'll go with another NXT superstar as my choice, which is Tommaso Ciampa as NXT champion. You never would have imagined that when Tommaso Ciampa signed that he would be the linchpin, pretty much, of NXT for this year. And he just so belongs with that belt. And the thing is, the belt feels special because he treats it as not like, he doesn't just value it as like, this is the best belt in NXT. It's the best belt in WWE to him. And he categorizes himself as better than the WWE champion or the Universal champion or whoever. And it comes across in basically everything that he says and does. Worst, a lot of options. Basically every United States Championship reign that wasn't Jeff Hardy. And even Jeff Hardy's one wasn't super impressive. Basically every Raw Tag Team Championship reign. Enzo Amore as Cruiserweight Champion, because he technically was at the start of the year. And he didn't even have the decency to drop it before being caught for the stuff that he did, or didn't do, as it turned out. Brock Lesnar's Universal one has to be said, but I give that a slight pass just because kayfabe-wise it's very prestigious, and I do value a little bit of kayfabe-wise in this. So I'm going to give the worst to Ambrose and Rollins. Oh, actually, Carmella, Women's Champion.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
I just, like, Ambrose and Rollins is, like, really high up there. It's definitely second place just because they won the Tag Team Championship and then they immediately split up as a tag team. So it doesn't really get much worse than that, really. But I just didn't enjoy anything about Carmella as a heel champion. Her title reign, none of her matches were particularly good. The promo stuff was fine, but it just doesn't, it didn't, like, save it for me.
So, you know who had a good year this year as far as title reigns go? Vacant had a damn good year.
Oh, yeah, Vacant had a standout year.
Vacant was, by my count, Universal Champion, United States Champion, Cruiserweight Champion for like 3 months or whatever it was.
Didn't know you made the weight limit.
North American Champion, NXT UK Women's Champion, and is the current reigning defending NXT United Kingdom Tag Team Champion.
Pretty good, yes.
And Raw Tag Team Champion.
Well, that's nothing to be
damn
proud
good year for Vacant.
Well, Vacant had the best Raw Tag title reign of the year.
Yeah, that's probably true.
That's a lot of titles for Vacant.
Could we also technically, I know it's not technically a title reign, but could we just give an honourable mention to Worst to Shane McMahon wins Best in the World at the
yes.
Crown Jewel?
That's pretty bad, yeah. Let's go with, this one is one of the ones I had changed. I mentioned this in the first part if you didn't check that out, which it used to be called something like a Legend Comeback of the Year or something like that. I switched it up this year because I kind of figured, you know what, Legend Comeback, that doesn't really specify exactly what that is. So now it is the one-off cameo appearance from somebody. It's just, for instance, I had Rey Mysterio down as a potential option when he popped up for the Royal Rumble, but then he popped up more times and then he just re-signed with the roster. So it was like, all right, well, that doesn't count. You didn't have a cameo in the Royal Rumble. You just hadn't quite fully signed yet. So there were a lot of different options. There were tons of people throughout Raw 25 and SmackDown 1000. There were people that popped up just for, like, JBL was on the Royal Rumble kickoff. Sean Daivari randomly was inserted into the Greatest Royal Rumble for a segment. Different things along the lines like that. I went with, for my best, the Dudley Boys and Edge and Christian at the Hall of Fame. They were the most entertaining part of the Hall of Fame, by far as I can remember. And my worst is the same thing, so it's tough to kind of pick between them, which is everybody on Raw 25 and that one segment with Teddy Long, Vicky Guerrero, and John Laurinaitis on SmackDown 1000, where literally all that they did is just go, hey, can you guys, like, stand in front of the camera for a couple seconds? What's the point? The Raw 25 thing in particular was Teddy Long, Brother Love, Brooklyn Brawler, The Boogeyman, Howard Finkel, Harvey Whippleman, I forget who else, but they just walked into a room. And it was like, what? You couldn't do anything better than that? You had Terry Runnels on the stage just stand there and wave. Just Raw 25 was a real shit show, and that was my worst event of the year, my worst special event for the longest time because of stuff like that. So how do you guys go as far as best and worst cameo goes?
So initially, because I had seen it on the list, my go-to for best was going to be Rey's appearance at the Rumble, but since that's disqualified, I'm going to say Evolution at SmackDown 1000. They owned the room. Batista set it on fire with everything he said about Randy and Hunter. So they're my best. Honorable mention for best goes to Ric Flair's train wreck at the Royal Rumble, where he's like, I love Kane. I want him to be the mayor. And when they're trying to hype up Kane potentially winning the Universal title from Lesnar. And worst for me, completely agree with you. The entirety of Raw 25 sucked. But I'm going to say Kelly, Women's Royal Rumble, because she does not represent anything about any kind of evolution, revolution, nothing. She was the death of the Divas division and women's wrestling in WWE, and she should not be praised.
Okay, so I'll start with my worst, because there was a lot of choices. Kelly was definitely high up on there. Raw 25 in general, like, especially the thing where they just, like, paraded out a bunch of women. It just felt a little bit like, oh, we had nothing better planned for these people, so we'll just have them stand in the ring and stand on the stage and wave to people. Except for Tori Wilson, because she looked absolutely stunning. So she gets past. But I want to go with two tied ones, because they both represent the same, were both like standout, like horrible moments in two shows that were just notably horrible, which are the two Saudi Arabian ones, which is Sean Daivari, because that segment was terribly offensive on every single level, and Hulk Hogan. Because what's the thing you can do when you realise how much of a shit show this turned out to be? Let's bring back the guy that was saying racist stuff like a couple of years ago that we completely barred because, ratings and all that were pretty desperate. It was, yeah, they both seemed like very scummy decisions to me. Best, Rey Mysterio's hard there until he just comes back, so it's disqualified. I'm a big Molly Holly fan, so to see her both in the Royal Rumble and at Evolution was like a nice thing to see. Batista it's probably second, just because the stuff that he did on SmackDown 1000, the promo is one of the best promos I think he's ever cut. It was so much fun. It just made me want to see Batista come back again. But I decided I'll go slightly different and go the Hurricane from the Royal Rumble, because I love the Hurricane.
Yeah, he was fun.
And yeah, and he just had a nice little cameo appearance where he just like feigns to put someone in the choke slam and does the thing with John Cena, and then just gets thrown out. It was just a fun thing to have him involved in.
Which, by the way, for anybody who wants some clarification, this also counts things like The Godfather popped up on the House Hardy Halloween and stuff. I'm sure I'm missing people on my list, so if you can think of something like that, then, you know, drop a comment and let everybody else know those kind of things. But, yeah, lots of cameos this year. This one, we don't have a best and a worst. This one's just an oddball when it comes to it, because it's the most shocking moment of the year, and I had a lot of different options. I still haven't quite picked which one I'm going to go with between 3 different options. I'm leaning towards one, so by the end of this, I'll pick between them. But I'm going to mention a couple things, just honorable mentions and some possible choices and stuff, and you guys stop me. Typical kind of thing. Hurricane returns at the Royal Rumble. We just talked about that. I was kind of surprised about that. Vicky Guerrero returns at the Royal Rumble. I didn't think that they would have her wrestle in that, so I was pretty shocked about that. The announcement of the North American Championship. NXT just randomly out of nowhere. It's just like, hey, by the way, mid-card title for NXT. It was like, oh, shit, okay, cool. Even though I didn't like the belt design or the name of it. This one's a strong contender. I didn't go with it, and you guys might, but Daniel Bryan is cleared to compete.
I thought I had a solid choice, but yeah, that was very shocking.
I just didn't think that it was going to happen.
I kind of thought it was going to happen. Just, I mean, it's easy to say in hindsight now, but just due to the fact that I knew that Daniel Bryan was going to wrestle again. I just didn't think it was going to be with WWE stuff.
Yeah, I guess that's a better clarification, because I did think that he would just end up going back to ROH or something like that. But I remember it was the strangest thing, because they announced it, 2 hours before SmackDown, and I went to go to the bathroom. I came back, and our group chat specifically is lighting up. Oh my God, Daniel Bryan's wrestling. And I'm like, that was maybe the most shocking and quick shock, except for the one I'm thinking of. That's probably going to be my pick.
It's not my pick. It was my number 4 pick, though. Here's one of my potential ones, which is that Asuka lost at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely up there for me. I don't know if I'm going to pick that one. I'm leaning towards not picking that one, but there's an argument to be made. Shinsuke Nakamura turns heel at WrestleMania. Didn't see that one coming. Here's one of my other main picks, which is Braun Strowman picks Nicholas. Because if you would have told me any of his tag team partners, I never, out of 50 fucking guesses, would have been like, I don't know, some 10-year-old kid in the crowd that's actually the son of John Cone. That never would have registered in my brain.
Why do we just call him Nicholas? Why do we call him Nicholas Cone?
No, because he's, I believe his full wrestling name is Little Kid Nicholas. But,
Little Kid Nicholas Cone. Another option, this one's not my pick, but Brock Lesnar beats Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. That was just sort of like, oh, fuck you. You're just going to drag this out. We got the post-Mania debuts of Ember Moon, No Way Jose, and Authors of Pain. Those aren't really all that shocking to me because we knew that there was going to be some call-ups. But still, maybe, you know. I also had down Kurt Angle says TNA is hiring on Monday Night Raw. April 9th. I thought that was like, wow, shit, you're actually saying, no, I think TNA's hiring, but that company blows, like that kind of a thing. It was very shocking to me to see Titus O'Neil slide under the ring. Daniel Bryan's heel turn was shocking. But the other one that I have down as this one might be my number 1 pick is Roman Reigns relinquishes the Universal Championship due to leukemia. That was just like, I mean, it's really between that and the Nicholas thing, because even though the Asuka thing to me is really high up there, it's probably my number 3 pick. There still was people that were like, yeah, maybe Charlotte beats Asuka because she's Charlotte Flair. I never would have thought Nicholas would have been chosen, and I didn't, under any circumstances, imagine a scenario of, all right, well, we have to retool everything from our plans from WrestleMania because Roman Reigns is going to talk about how he has cancer.
Yeah.
Like, what? You know?
Well, I just kind of thought the Roman Reigns one was just like it had to win this category just on the basis of obviously the Nicholas thing and other elements of the year was shocking, but you kind of just boil that down to, well, that's wrestling. Wrestling is occasionally going to surprise you with like storyline elements and different turns that you may not expect, and different results than you would expect to the outcome. But never in a million years did you expect the top guy, the big, not even just like the main champion, but the guy that the company's been built around has to essentially vacate and leave because he's suffering a potentially terminal illness, depending on how badly it goes, and hopefully it's not terminal and he does make a full recovery. But like to have a guy of that stature, a guy that is so prominently placed in everything that WWE has done in the last 5 years or so, have to be battling cancer, I don't think there's anything that can really top that.
Yeah, this is my number one, and it wasn't even close because there had been just a brief report of, hey, Roman's potentially injured. This is like an hour before Raw, but he's running the ropes and he's fine. And I wasn't even going to watch until WWE tweeted, Raw's starting with the big dog, and I noticed he was in street clothes. So immediately I turned it on, and I'm listening, and he says, I'm kind of half tuned out because I'm thinking he's going to say, I'm injured, and I have to let go of the title. And then he says, my real name's Joe, and I've been battling leukemia for 11 years, and I just stopped, and it didn't process fully for a while. And yeah, that's the worst thing I've heard in wrestling in a while, and I'm hoping he's back sooner. I don't expect him to come back at any point until we hear fully that he's, it's back in remission. But man, this was by far the most shocking moment of the year.
I think I was going to say, maybe just there's a few other honourable mentions which are more in a kayfabe sense outside of the Reigns leukemia thing, because obviously that's just a real life event that's permeated into the wrestling world. But more kayfabe ones, well, not so much kayfabe, but Big Cass being released, I thought was a bit shocking because of the timing of it.
That was shocking.
Because he'd just come off a feud with Daniel Bryan, and just the timing of it just seemed odd. Ziggler winning the Intercontinental Championship on an episode of Raw during an open challenge was, I don't think anybody was seeing that coming. Just thought, oh, it's just another open challenge. Ziggler gets to fight Rollins and we'll lose and then we'll move on. And then also, I think also just piggybacking off the Reigns leukemia thing, Ambrose turning the same exact night.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking too. A lot of shocking things this year.
And no one's even said, wow, hey, by the way, Shawn Michaels unretired and did a match. That was shocking.
And came out bald.
Yeah, he came out bald.
I think it'd be more shocking if they didn't like kind of drag it out to the point where, oh god, it's so obvious that Shawn Michaels is coming back, really.
Yeah, that's true. Let's go over to Smark Out Moments. This, if you don't know the clarification, it's basically this could be the finishing award of the year, but it's just the placement of writing awards and stuff like that. I don't have it in that kind of capacity where it's the best and the worst moment, thing, anything. Just what made you... That's why it doesn't have to be like one specific moment type of a thing, but like what, as an overall general idea or anything, made you the happiest and the most frustrated? What got you to forget a little bit that this is fake, or just got you to be like super happy to be a wrestling fan, and then the other thing that made you go, I don't even know if I want to fucking watch anymore type thing or something. Honorable mention, I think, for best is the Raw Gauntlet that Seth Rollins had did in February. That was really cool. And the long boo from Elias and Kevin Owens and stuff. But to me, my best Smark Out moment kind of idea is just Daniel Bryan returning to in-ring action, because that was like the feel-good story of the year. My honorable mentions for worst was originally I had this down, was Jonathan Coachman calls Roman Reigns, quote, beloved by the sports entertainment community. Which I remember that just being like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Now you're just gonna blatantly lie about this kind of stuff to try to convince people that they have a different opinion. And I really hated when actually no, this is lumped in together. Yeah, that's what it was. These are my notes. I lumped this all together as everything surrounding the whole Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar, and Roman Reigns stuff this year. You've got Strowman turns heel. You've got Strowman beats everybody at the Elimination Chamber but loses to Roman Reigns because we want to set up that WrestleMania rematch that people didn't want the first time around, and we're going to try to do it again. Then we've got we're going to swerve you, and Lesnar's going to win at WrestleMania, but we're going to do the greatest Royal Rumble. Look at that. We swerved you too because he won that too, but we're going to talk about how Roman Reigns actually won that. Then we're going to waste more time and do that in SummerSlam, and then we're going to have that. And just to fuck you over a little bit more, we're going to turn Braun Strowman heel, which is just ridiculous. Do that stupid feud. Insert Brock Lesnar back again by having him ruin Hell in a Cell. Then Roman Reigns has to lose the championship because of fucking leukemia. And then we do the Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar thing at Crown Jewel, and it becomes, let's put the title back on Brock Lesnar. This whole year was just, everything revolving around that was just a curse.
For me, for worst, I almost want to get into this because it's almost crossing over into worst show, but Crown Jewel left me so defeated.
Mm-hmm.
It was really one of the most down moments I had just in general. And I don't know, another worst Smark Out moment, which also I might even say was the best depending on perspective, that Undertaker John Cena thing. It started out as something that could be really cool, and I remember getting really excited when I saw the hat in the ring, thinking, okay, they're gonna have a pretty decent match, and I like both guys, so I'm excited. And then it's 2 minutes long, so that's high on my list, but I don't think anything is outdoing Crown Jewel, specifically, hey, we're gonna have this tournament, haha, Shane McMahon won. Get it? Because he's the best in the world, because he's McMahon. What the hell? Like, that whole thing really just left a sour taste in my mouth. Best Smark Out moment where you completely forget that you're watching a scripted product. That goes back to my favorite match, Gargano Ciampa in general. Like, everything that they did makes you forget that you're watching, fake phony wrestling, and it's just so good. And I would also throw in everything that the Undisputed Era has done this year. Basically, NXT is my best Smark Out moment of the year.
I'll tell you, one person who agrees with you is that dude in the crowd that was like, "You're the devil, Ciampa. You're the devil." That it's still real to that dude.
Smark Out moments. Surprisingly, I have more worst than bests in my short list of ones. Because, spoiler alert, guys, it's not been a great year, 2018, for WWE. So,
we can't
cut to the chase. It's been a shit year.
So. Yeah, sure. So, but in terms of best, I think my overall one for the best would be Daniel Bryan's return, just because it's such a feel-good moment. It makes you just a guy who's been so devoted to wrestling for so long that had it taken away from him for 2 years, and now gets to come back and he's now on top of the world. Just his entire journey back has been great. But in terms of just, because Tony's already mentioned it, just some honorable mentions. Becky Lynch turning and just everything that's come off the back of that was great. The Samoa Joe Wendy promo. It's just the biggest like the shittest thing that you could possibly get someone, and he turns it to absolute gold. Was amazing. Ricochet's debut, like him coming into the being announced for the ladder match and him just jumping into the ring and stuff like that. Also the moment where he dives over the top rope to stare down Velveteen Dream in the build-up to their match. You know, where he does like that flip dive.
Yeah,
over
that
the
was
top
really
and
cool.
lands his feet was just so awesome. Ronda Rousey's debut as well. I'd probably give it to that. And I mean that in terms of her WrestleMania thing, not so much the Royal Rumble one, but her WrestleMania debut.
Not the point.
Yeah. And also I had that down listening in here just because I found it just hilarious. Kane's wig falling off the crown jewel. It was just like you forget that you don't just forget that you're a wrestling fan, you just forget that like anything's wrong with this event in general. It's just you're just having a laugh at that point. Worst, I have to piggyback off Rob's in saying that just the whole WWE association with Saudi Arabia this year just it's the closest I've come to wanting to leave watching wrestling, because it's such a disgusting practice that they're doing. And at the end of the day, they're a business, they have the right to do it if they want to, but just there was such a massive fan backlash, and they just show that they care more about the money that this stuff earns than what the fans think about what they're doing, which is just not a good position to be in. But a few other honourable mentions for Worst. The whole thing was around Nicholas, because I'm just a huge tag team wrestling mark. Sasha Banks and Bailey in therapy.
Hold on, back up. Sasha Banks and Bailey in general.
That's in my storyline.
Yeah. Lashley sisters.
We're gonna get to that.
Yeah, it's probably the worst segment of the year in terms of that thing. Carmella cashing in. Shane best in the world, obviously. Raw squashes SmackDown at Survivor Series because I'm a SmackDown
that's
guy.
really fucking awful one.
Yeah, and one very recently, the McMahon family promo at the start of Raw. I hate when people lie to my face and lie right in front of me, and you could just tell that they were all just lying about how maybe things will improve, but the fact that they think that they are going to be the reasons why it improves just makes me quite sick. And the fact they say, oh, the reason why it wasn't great is because there's been no direct management from the McMahons or anything like that. It's like, yeah, the really bad thing was we needed more authority figures telling wrestlers what to do.
And that we needed more McMahon involvement as opposed to that Vince keeps getting involved.
Yeah, just fuck off.
I think that one of my favorite things to come out of all of this is Vince McMahon being on SmackDown and telling Becky and Charlotte to get over it and do something about it. I thought
I wish they would do something about it. I wish they'd walk over to him and just like put him out of his misery.
Double nut shot.
Yeah.
If it leads to more stuff like that, where you have, the McMahons kind of anchoring things, because people, we know better because we've been watching for so long, but the live crowd ate it up. Which brings me to another really bad worst moment of the year that made me sad to be associated with wrestling fans. The fucking Iron Man match at Extreme Rules and the crowd just ruining it with their
I found that funny.
I thought it was funny too.
I thought it was great.
It ruined the match. I was really looking forward to the match.
They ruined the match. What are they doing, putting a 30-minute Iron Man match as the main event after the show that Extreme Rules was?
Well, they're going to use that as the excuse to say, we gave you wrestling and you didn't want it, so you see, we're going to give you Lesnar.
That's true, but all I'd say is if those two had a good match, they would have been able to get ahead of the chance.
Just look back on 2018 and think about this. The year started off with, we're going to have the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. Asuka wins, which makes perfect sense. Shinsuke Nakamura wins, which means we're going to get this dream match at WrestleMania. We're finally building towards the end of this Brock Lesnar horrible Universal title reign. Like the full year of having that title is going to be over soon. And we're getting Daniel Bryan coming back to wrestling. And all these people are going to be coming up from NXT. And TakeOver with Gargano and Ciampa is so great and everything. It's like that first chunk of time from January until WrestleMania was so optimistic. And then it became like, just here's reality right in your face.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Like we've said, that's the only time of year where you can feel optimistic about wrestling, because the rest of the time, people don't really seem to care.
Yeah, and it's really tough because now we're heading towards that time frame right now, and if we don't get any kind of positive stuff like that for the next year, 2019 is going to look pretty rough. We have one more to go with on the writing side, which is storyline. There's going to be some overlap with this one. But first things first, I'm just going to make this one easy because we've talked about it a lot. But my best storyline is the triple threat feud, Ciampa, Gargano, Black. Because that incorporates the whole Black being attacked, Gargano turning heel, Gargano and Ciampa. Like, it's an interwoven storyline, so I couldn't quite separate them. And that's just been the best thing that has been going in WWE this whole entire year. And last year, because it's carryover. That's amazing. I don't really know what else to say about that.
I think me and Rob are both in agreement with that one.
Worst storylines, again, stop me. Cena versus Undertaker is up there. Kevin Owens quits Monday Night Raw, then attacks Bobby Lashley the next week. That was your big fucking payoff thing.
Well, I'd piggyback off that one just quickly. Just the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are fired from SmackDown and then just end up on Raw 2 weeks later. Yeah,
that's another bad one. Drake Maverick pees himself, then pees on Bobby Roode's robe. The whole Roman Reigns keeps fighting Lesnar, all that stuff, but I gave that the worst thing of the year, so I didn't want to give that the same thing when it comes to this. My 3 picks that I have been going back and forth around are Bayley and Sasha Banks. That was just horrendous. Bobby Lashley and Sami Zayn feuding over Bobby Lashley's sisters. And one that I think a lot of people are going to have forgotten about. Jinder Mahal doesn't think that Bobby Roode respects Randy Orton on the SmackDown top 10 list. That was the feud, was Jinder Mahal saying, "Hey, Orton, Bobby doesn't think that you're good because you're not on the top 10 list." And that was the one and only thing that they did with that SmackDown top 10 list. And somehow the thing that came out of it was Rusev gets thrown into the match and Jinder Mahal wins the United States title for 2 weeks. What the fuck? That was WrestleMania. That's the biggest show of the year and the best thing you have for the United States title, which has gotten massively screwed over this year. The 2 titles that they just completely ignored were the Raw Tag title and the United States title. And they legitimately thought that a good enough feud for WrestleMania was, I am going to try to instigate a fight between you two over a stupid top 10 list. Also, Rusev is there.
But that's because everything with them for WrestleMania is get everybody you possibly can on the card. Story is almost secondary.
Which that's why it should have just been Roode and Orton, and Rusev and Mahal should have been in the Battle Royal. That SmackDown top 10 list was atrocious. But I don't know if I can pick that over the Bayley and Sasha Banks thing, because that dragged on for like 4 months. And actually it was more than that, because it was started before Elimination Chamber and it ended around like SummerSlam or something.
Well, it's still technically not over. They're still together.
Yeah, they do still kind of tease that every once in a while.
Yeah, and like what is the actual... It makes me weird, because like, what was the actual storyline with Bayley and Sasha Banks? Is it the fact that they're a team that doesn't seem to get on very well, or is it they're feuding?
At one point, it seemed like they were gonna fuck. Because it was like Sasha's like, "I'm always gonna love you," and it's like, there's some like problems with those.
Storyline's the best storyline.
At least I would have been interested, because then it would have been like, okay, well they're both like, one of them's married and one of them's engaged. How this is gonna work or something, but. These 3 are so bad, like, because you can't ignore the Bobby Lashley sister thing. We had people in drag pretend to be his sisters, as if we give a shit about his sisters, too. Because the big idea of Bobby Lashley's not really getting over that well, how should we get him to get cheered? I know. He'll cut an interview with Renee Young where he goes, I got a lot of sisters. This one used to carry out a blanket and hit me with a bucket, or whatever the fuck, and it was like, now I'm supposed to give a shit? And then the big takeaway from that is, and now we got 3 guys in drag. Now I'm supposed to be angry about it even more. Like, I don't know if I can pick between these 3. These 3 were just absolutely horrendous. These were the types of feuds that somebody should have lost their job over.
And
fuck Brock Lesnar.
The Lashley Sami Zayn thing was bad, and I hate storylines where, because there's outrage over people in drag, WWE feels compelled to write a formal statement about how they are entertainment, and all of that just gets under my skin. But because of the fact that there was no payoff, there was no evolution match between the two, I'm going Sasha and Bailey, and they're two of my favorites. So that hurts.
What about best? Or we already covered
Well,
that with.
the best by far is Ciampa Gargano, and I'm telling you,
Woo.
enjoy this, because you'll never
You're not
see
getting
this
it again.
level of storytelling ever again. I genuinely don't know what they're doing with them.
Yeah, because it seems like Gargano should be the babyface, yet he is clearly a heel, and it's just like, huh?
That's the thing about it, because like if it was happening in WWE, you'd feel quite anxious about it. Whereas these two have done well. They've moved the feud around in so many different directions, but they've never put a foot wrong. So you've got to just trust that where they're going is the right way to go. And even if it's not the way that you think it should go, they'll prove to you that it was the right way to go.
Gargano put a foot wrong on the last man standing kind of thing.
Yeah, he did.
But in my terms, like best storyline, obviously Gargano, Ciampa, Black, best one. But just so we can mention a few other people, because they weren't just the only great storyline this year. Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch, thought was really well put together. Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane,
I like that one, yeah.
very good story. Undertaker, Triple H, everything outside of the actual matches was great.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe and AJ Styles. I think Mustafa Ali and Hideo Itami had a very good feud on 205 Live, with the Itami like knocking out Mustafa Ali, and so having to end the match due to like referee stoppage, and then Ali having to come back and like fight his way back into contention. And also one that I think would go under the radar, but was actually far better than I expected it to be, Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella. I think the amount of heat they managed to put together in a couple of weeks for the feud, even though it started off really quite crappy with just the Bellas turning on Ronda Rousey, but the heat they managed to generate for the feud after that was actually pretty impressive considering the time restraint. Worst, Bayley and Sasha Banks is high up there. I had down like the entire Carmella Women's Championship reign. Lesnar Reigns is high up there as well. Corbin as the Raw General Manager was awful. Ascension versus Rude and Gable, where they just decided to give Victor a few wins, or Connor, or whoever it was, for some reason.
To me, that's not like it's a horribly offensive storyline. It was just sort of, why are you doing that for 3 weeks?
But I think the one I'm going to go for is the entire Monster in the Bank situation, where Braun Strowman, someone who definitely did not need the Money in the Bank briefcase, wins the Money in the Bank briefcase. Then the entire feud with Kevin Owens, where Strowman is clearly the heel because he's just beating up poor Kevin Owens every single week, but Kevin Owens is still treated as, well, they still see him as the heel, but the crowd are becoming more and more sympathetic towards Owens, and Strowman is losing more and more steam. And then Strowman turns heel, cashes in Hell in a Cell, and then that is interrupted by Brock Lesnar coming in. And so for another year, the Money in the Bank briefcase was entirely wasted on a guy that didn't need it and didn't do anything with it.
Do you think that that's an idea that should go away for a while?
No, Money in the Bank itself is fine. They just need to actually use it.
They need to stop treating it as, we'll do something and we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, you need to go into it with a plan of who you're actually going to do it, and a plan of when you think they're going to win the championship and who they're going to win it from. You can't just go in saying, okay, we'll just give it to this guy and then eventually he'll cash in on it. It's like, you need to have a more of a plan around it.
Well, the reason I don't think that they do that is because they enjoy having it more as their get out of jail free card. Had Strowman never cashed in and that leukemia announcement had come, Strowman would have cashed in randomly on like Rollins or Lesnar, and that would have been the way to go. But because they go ahead.
Well, it's just a case of like, I don't think it's the briefcase itself that's the problem. It's the fact that like they use it as their get out of jail free card, but they haven't been using it as their get out of jail free card, because the last two people that held it is Braun Strowman, who didn't actually who they had cash in just a random match, which he would have gotten anyway because he should have been number one contender for that anyway. And Baron Corbin, who didn't actually win who failed his cash in attempt. So whether it's their get out of jail free card or not, or whether they do have a plan doing it, actually have the fucking guy win the title. That's what the money back's there for.
That's what they did with this year with Alexa Bliss. It was like, have Alexa win. We know she's going to cash in, and then that way we could do Alexa Ronda. They had a game plan for that one. They didn't when it came to Strowman.
Yeah.
We didn't mention this, but I think this is pretty bad, given how hyped it was. AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't live up to that. I also put out there, which is like a weird thing to say, considering how it's turned around in the last month, but everything up until the Daniel Bryan heel turn. His return.
Just how they used Daniel Bryan, yeah.
Yeah, just like the WrestleMania match was well below par because they took him out the entire thing. Then he was feuding with Big Cass. And then the feud with The Miz, I thought, was underwhelming as well. Like, really below what you'd expect from those two, considering everything they built up beforehand. So everything up until his heel turn, I thought, was, like, well below what we were expecting from Daniel Bryan coming back.
The AJ Shinsuke thing for me, these two guys are like the best wrestlers you have, and they decided to just turn that into, but I'm going to punch him in the dick. Yeah.
Well, the feud started off as, oh man, they're going to have that match for 2 months. And then they had the match, and it was like, yeah, but you punched him in the dick. And then they dragged it out for another 3 months of, dude, you punched me in the dick after we had that match. So that's really it. Yeah. Terrible storylines. Yeah, that's it for the writing awards. Fucking writing, jeez. As I mentioned before, we are having 6 different sections here, so if you're on iTunes and Stitcher, just stay tuned. But if you are on YouTube, click on the next section. That is the Programming Awards. We'll see you there, everybody.